The 2026 Panini Senior Bowl not only has some of those great old elements, but some really cool new features coming. Along with some of those new features is new executive director Drew Fabianich. Drew joins Neil and I to talk about the game, the top 300, the changes that he's hoping to implement, gives us a little preview on some announcements upcoming and how they will hold on and strengthen their grip as the premier all-star game for that NFL draft. Join us today as we talk with Drew, top 300 and so much more here on Scouting the League. Hey everybody, and welcome to Scouting the League. This is a special Monday long format episode as we jump in with Drew of the Senior Bowl. We got Cut Down Day coming tomorrow, as well as a really fun, fascinating conversation with Annie Duke, cognitive psychologist, on Wednesday. A full week for Scouting the League as college games have kicked off, NFL cutdowns come, and all things football continue to ramp up and really start to settle into an in-season schedule. Before we jump in with Drew, though, let me remind you to like, subscribe, and share this podcast wherever you are watching and listening. Make sure you're giving us a follow, and most importantly, share this episode and this whole podcast with a friend. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Again, follow myself as well as Neil on social media. I am Rodrik David at RightStepADV is where you can find me. Neil Stratton is at Inside the League. InsideTheLeague.com is his website. And make sure you check out his blog, succeedinfootball.com. Make sure you head over, check out my website as well, rsafootball.com. That is Right Step Advising, where I am working to help players, coaches, teams, athletes. It doesn't matter who it is. If I can help you in the football world, be a scout, learn scheme, whatever it is, I want to be there to help you. If you're a scout or aspiring scout, I have a special spot for you. Go check out thescoutingcommunity.com as well, helping you learn all elements of networking, scouting, do the things you need to do now to be in an NFL or college front office come next year. That is thescoutingcommunity.com. Make sure you check out Blue Maka insoles as well, BLUMAKA.com. Our fascinating conversations with Chief Innovation Officer Stuart Jenkins back about a month ago on his revolutionary insoles. That's bluemaka.com. Go check those out, whether you are a college GM, whether you're ordering for your scouts, for your coaches, for your team as well. Don't just put on shoes, put those insoles in the shoes first, and you will increase your performance with just that little work right there. Get those Blue Maka insoles. Use code SCOUTING20 when you check out to get that 20% off discount as well over at bluemaka.com. But today with Drew Fabianich of the Senior Bowl, going to be a really fun conversation where we get into not only his new top 300 list, again, a new feature that he's got out, a few of the programs that have high expectations listed based on the number of players they have in there, but as well as Drew's background, what elements he wants to bring to the week in Mobile, some of the best strengths, some of those spots he's looking to improve, so much more. Really fun conversation. Let's get into it. We're really excited to introduce, for the first time for Scouting the League, we have the executive director of the Senior Bowl. Drew, welcome to Scouting the League.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me. Look forward to this. We talked about a month ago about this, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Your relationship with Neil goes further back. Again, we've been kind of off and on talking now with our different roles the last couple of years. But again, obviously a new venture for you. But again, NFL background, you've got high school background, college GM background. Again, a ton of different insight from different areas that have brought you to this point, to the Senior Bowl, which again, the singular premier all-star game when it comes to pre-draft time. The draft starts in Mobile. You're down in Mobile now, a great spot. Everybody's got it circled on the calendars, but let's talk through again that origin story, how you got to where you are today. Again, the NFL, the college, the high school background, and everything you've learned along the way.
Started in coaching. Um, coached, gosh, um, probably 9 different places. Coached every position but running backs, tight ends, and offensive line. Coordinated both sides of the football. Um,
That's at the college level, right, Drew?
that's the college level,
Right.
and again, I started as a student teacher, in high school, and then I spent the last part of my career in Dallas, as a defensive coordinator in high school there, before I got a call from Bill Parcells and Larry Lacewell, and they wanted to talk. First, Parcells wanted to talk about coaching position, and that ended up leading into going to talk to Lacewell after he was done about dealing personnel, and I spent 18 years with the Cowboys there. Then I decided it was time to kind of move on, just because, again, I was doing the same thing for 14 straight years, and wear and tear, that much travel was getting a little too tedious for me. And I decided to try the GM business, and jumped into one at Auburn. Very short term there, but then 2 years as a general manager of West Virginia, for Neil Brown, which was fantastic. Prepared me for a lot of things, especially with the changing world of college football. And to be quite blunt, I'm actually happy to be out of it, because it changes every 5 minutes, and it continues to change every 5 minutes for about the next 4 or 5 years. Got an opportunity to come down here to be the executive director. You know, this checked a lot of boxes for us as far as a family goes, and as far as we go where we like to live, and we like to live in the South. We spend most of our time in the South, and love being on the coast, love being next to the water. Like I said, we've got a lot of ties. We've got some family down this way, so it's been really, really great experience so far for us, and we're trying to just get settled into a very old home. We bought an 1867 Colonial. That's a lot of work, but it's going to be beautiful when it's done. So hopefully that was short and quick for you, because it's 37 years worth, of experience.
Yeah, it's kind of both ends of the spectrum there. You talked about again. You get into again, as long as you were with the Cowboys in that role, and it becomes kind of the same thing every year. Again, the NFL scouting cycle. Again, you can put it down on a calendar. You know what you're going to be doing, and for some people, they absolutely love it. They love the consistency. They love it, and then you flip it over to the college GM side, where again, probably every 2 weeks, it's like some new memos coming out or having to balance it, and again, like you said, a completely different change to where you're reacting, you're trying to anticipate, trying to change some plans, build some stuff out, to now Senior Bowl, getting a little bit of both sides of it. Again, obviously working a ton with NFL, thinking about it from that perspective, but again, still servicing all these colleges who, again, we're going to talk about these top 300 players and everything. But again, the college landscape changing so much that there will be a trickle down or trickle up, or again trickle to the Senior Bowl in the way you guys operate. Talk about just a little piece of that. How has that been, your experience on both sides started to kind of play into what you're doing here?
Well, I think that everything I've done, as far as coaching and personnel and the GM piece, I think it lends itself really, really well to every aspect of this, because this isn't just picking 145 of the best players you can find. I mean, the Senior Bowl charity is involved with a lot of different things that people don't know about. I mean, just around the city. I mean, we donate $5,000 to each team just for uniforms, in this area, in Mobile, Baldwin County. We have a leadership, tie in with, Baldwin County. We have a Hall of Fame, at the Senior Bowl, and we'd have an event, in May. We have the second biggest charity golf tournament in the entire state of Alabama. There's draft parties, there's community, service type things that, we handle. We handle the NFL flag football aspect down here in Mobile too. So again, do I have to go fundraise? Yes. Do I have to go sell? Yes. Do I have to go recruit? Yes. Do I have to evaluate tape? Yes. So it kind of throws everything into a skill set that I've already, developed over the years. And that again, dealing with agents, I mean, again, there's nothing that has come up other than the media piece of this that surprised. It also, surprised me a little bit how extensive the community aspect of this is for this guy, because this city has embraced this game for years on end, and it's an incredible event for them. And they've embraced it and rolled with it, and they take a great pride in it. So, like I said, the only thing that really surprised me was the media aspect of this because, I don't like doing a lot of media, but I know it's part of the job.
Now, Drew, that's a great segue there. Obviously, your predecessor, Jim Nagy, really took it. Phil Savage, I think, started to take it online and take it into social media, etc. Jim took it to another level, to new dimension. Having known you for several years, that doesn't seem like that's your comfort zone. Are you going to be able to kind of carry that mantle the same way Jim did? Are you going to kind of put your own spin on it? What's your take on all that?
This is my first X account ever, DFAB SB. And again, am I going to highlight, as much as Jim did? Probably not. Jim's really, really good at it. And again, I'm going to try to keep up. I'm going to try to build, what he's built on. But again, there's going to be certain aspects about this that I'm going to carry just for myself. But the Senior Bowl, X account, I mean, we're going to put everything possible on there to give everybody, the inside look at everything we're doing. And I think it's more about Senior Bowl than it is about me. But I'm still going to carry a lot of things that I'm doing specifically on my own. I want to keep them separate, but shared in a way. But the biggest aspect is going to be on the Senior Bowl, aspect. That's where most of it's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, again, I don't know. I think it was actually Phil's innovation where started to bring in former scouts to be part of the staff and to do it in a more NFL style of covering the nation. Let's discuss your plan there. Are you going to kind of do the same thing Phil and Jim did? Are you going to, obviously you've got a lot of big time former NFL scouts and even a couple guys that were more on the college side that you brought in. Can you discuss that staff and kind of how they're going to work with you?
There's going to be 10 of them, and they are living in different areas of the country, and they will be going to games that they deem important to them during the scouting process. I'm not going to just have them go to a game just to go to a game. Their primary, is actually cross-checking the grades that we've already put up, and then we're going to cross-check them, later on, so we can actually work this just like an NFL ballpark. And Jim has already done that. Phil had already done that also. I just think that, the wealth of experience these guys bring, is astronomical. And it makes my job a heck of a lot easier because I know about 80% of these guys and have been with them on the road, discussed players with them before. And it's nice to have guys that talk the same language and have the same experience. And, again, they're to cross-check us. We're to cross-check them. And it's no different than how we put together a vertical board, in the NFL. And that's really what it is because, we're going to move down and we're going to say, okay, here are the 9 best quarterbacks. And if 1 and 2 say no, then we're going to go to 10 and 11 then. So it's no different than that. But for these guys, I can't even tell you the number of years of experience they have. And we've got some very good young scouts out there too that you need to get, a lot of attention when they come, come to the Senior Bowl. And, hopefully they'll get a lot of hands pressed and then meet a lot of people and get a lot of contacts because I want them to develop and I want them to get jobs. And I want everybody that's both on our staff to get better jobs. Mm-hmm. We want to train them, we want to prepare them, and we want them to get them better jobs. So that's really what they are. We have truly 3 in-house, including me. Jack Gilmore is my director of ops. And then we have Michael Newsom and, Jackson Grovey, which are the scouting assistants. I cut one out because we needed somebody actually more so in the office, working on the administrative side than we did, grading tape because, I'm grading tape, Jack's grading tape, the 10 scouts are grading tape, and then the 2 scouting assistants are grading tape. So that's how we got to where we were as far as, the 300.
Drew, there's a delicate balance there between kind of working with NFL teams, and let's face it, they're part of your kind of customer base, if you will, and being independent. Where's that balance lie, Drew? How much of this is we're going to have 145 guys that we think represent the best talent in the league, and how much of it is, well, we've got some teams that have told us they want to see certain players. How do you kind of suss that out between that balance there?
You know, I think that I'm going to listen to it. Am I going to actually acquiesce? No. But again, if there's enough teams that say I need a specific player because, he hasn't played against very good competition, is he really, capable of playing at this level? Yeah, I'm going to listen to, if 6 people bring it up, there's usually a reason why.
Yeah.
If one person's bringing it up, I mean, then it's still going to go on what we see. And there is a balance, but, again, I want to make sure that this grows as far as a draftable game. I want to walk away from this with even whoever decides to tap out. I still want to have at least 80% draftable players that, drafted after the process is in it. That's what I'm shooting for.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, Drew, we were on the phone about a week ago, and we talked a little bit about some of the changes, and I was actually pretty excited about them, quite frankly. Let's talk about how you're going to do meetings, and I know that there are announcements coming on that and that kind of thing, but you're going to have a different scheduling as opposed to what Jim did. How much of that can you talk about here?
Yeah, I can talk about it all. We haven't released it in the community yet, other than to just certain pieces of it. We're going to announce to the chamber and the council and all that later on, and I think it'll be a big year. And I'll back a little bit and tell you the reason why I thought about this. And again, for those that have gone through it, and once the formal I'll digress a little bit. Before the formal interviews, it was incredibly difficult to get the players, and it was, a zoo on the second floor of Riverview, and it wasn't real conducive with actually getting what you needed. Well, Phil started the formal interview process, and Jim carried that through. There was good and there was bad about that. The good was that you had capabilities of actually talking to every single play, right? The bad part was it went from 7 o'clock to about 10:30 every night. And by the time you got done, you were toast. And I said, I can't imagine what it's like for them to play. And this can't be good, because I also heard the agents were complaining they couldn't even talk to the players because they're in interviews all night. Couldn't talk to them after practice because we were rushing them to get them back to meetings and deals. I get all that. Well, the only night that they will actually be interviewing is on Monday night, okay, the night. The rest of it, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they will be meeting. They will do the formal interviews in the middle. All right. Well, backward, I'm going to backtrack a little bit again. The Senior Bowl used to also be the unofficial NFL coaches, convention. It used to be. And once these coaches found out that they were going to be in interviews almost every flipping night, they decided that they really didn't want it done because they were doing the same thing at the combine. And they weren't going to be able to go out with triple whiters. They weren't going to be able to network. They weren't going to be able to find another job. And the problem is most of the jobs are filled by the time the combine hits. So I'm going to try to get that. Well, see, that frees up the coaches. It frees up the players. It frees up the personnel. It opens up the city, right, for economic boost. And I talked to a fellow down the street, and he has an incredible seafood place. And he said they had Wednesday night off last week, right? The personnel people did, and no interviews on Wednesday night. He said it was the second highest business day he had all year other than Mardi Gras. And I go, well, I said, you're going to have 3 days now. He said, I'd like to kiss you. I said, please don't. But he said, just think of me when we're, pulling this together because but to see, it all goes back to the player because I want this to be something that, put it this way, the best person you can have to recruit for your game is a past player that goes back to his place in the spring or over the summer and they say, no, he's wearing a Senior Bowl swag or whatever. Or he's talking to, some of the players that are still in school with that. And they say, hey, how was it? I want them to say it was a great experience. I mean, I want them to get as much out of it as they possibly can. I want them to build their brand and also build, their spot in the draft. And if they play and then they practice and play well, they can grow their value exponentially. I mean, the Zabel kid is the perfect example. I mean, the league had him as a high 3, and he goes 18th in first round. Well, you guys both know this. I mean, if you look at a 4-year contract, the difference between that is $12.7 million. So did he increase his value? Yeah, I'd say. So there's a lot of things that, I could sell, that makes this product, an easy sell, to be honest with you. Because, again, it's the premier game. Always has been, always will be. And I'm just going to steward this and try to make it better. So, that's the biggest change that I made. And we're also pushing practice back because of it, which also helps the second practice because it used to end at 4:30. Well, parents couldn't get out of work, and they also couldn't get their kids in time to get out to practice. Well, now they'll be able to just practice and end at 6:00. So they may get an hour out there with their kids and be able to watch practice, which they've never been able to do because not everybody can get to the game. They may be working on Saturday or they may have something going on. I want them to come to the game, don't get me wrong, but I also want them to get the flavor of practice and to have those kids, an opportunity to see those players up close and personal. So there's a lot of tie-ins, if you know what I mean.
And I know that the game still weighs off, but are you looking at maybe having like the American practice in the morning and the national in the afternoon, or will they kind of go back to back? Have you gotten that far?
They'll go back to back.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll go back to back. And I want it to be that way. That part's not going to change. The space between is not going to change. The practice is going to be shorter. I knock 15 minutes off of that. Because again, you guys both know that, you can do a walk through anytime. And you don't need to be spending 45 minutes with practice at the front end doing walkthroughs. You just don't. So let's get to the brass tacks of it. Let's get going. Let's get busy with ball. And I think the coaches will be fine with that. And if they need to do another workout, they got a ball ring. They could do another walk. So
yeah. No, again, I think the big takeaway. So you talk about the practice and the times you're going to have more people at practice, and then with everything you're doing schedule wise, again, getting, I would say, back to that model, and it even probably predates me and my scouting experience. But again, things you heard about where it was Mobile was the place in front of the combine, in front of any other all-star game, in front of in front of any other event. Mobile was the spot to go network, to go brush shoulders, to go meet people. And again, I don't think there's any disputing that it's kind of gotten away from that. Again, in some instances for good reasons. Again, protect players, allow agents, again, allow NFL teams to do their work. But that networking piece, no matter who you are, coaches, scouts, aspiring scouts, personnel people, again, probably some young agents that want to, again, brush shoulders with the big agent. It is going to be a networking thing, which again helps the game, gets people there, helps the city of Mobile, and again puts the Senior Bowl back in that spot where it could be and will be the spot if you want to network and get to know people in the football world.
There's no doubt. I mean, I used to go walk into the first floor of the Riverview, and I'd see 14, 15 coaches every time I turned around. And they were there for a reason. And it wasn't to interview players. It wasn't. I mean, this was like when it used to be a free-for-all, on the Riverview second floor. So the coaches weren't even involved in it. So why were they here? Well, they're going over the beach. They were going over to such and such. I mean, like you said, it was a huge networking piece, but it was also for personnel people too, because if you got all your interviews done, then you have time to actually go visit with other people that you hadn't seen on the road. So I think it's going to help. And the coaches that I've talked to, they were like, make sure that you send bullet points, to the GMs so they know that we'd like to be here. And I think they're going to do, because now they have every single evening free. Yeah. I mean, heck, out of 18 years, I went to dinner like 3 times. I mean, when my wife said, "Oh, you haven't been to this place?" I said, "Fine." I said, "I've been at Ruth Chris one time with Jerry." I said, "I've been at Felix's one time with Jason Garrett." I said, "And Winsel's right when we got here." That's it. So it's like, okay, everything was within a block or really close to practice, and it became rote memory of where you're going. Were you going to Chick-fil-A for breakfast? Or you going to run? I mean, you're going down to Joe Kane's, and the Battle House, and you're staying there. You got a place right next to the Holiday Inn. where's your go-to spot to grab your coffee? I mean, it was the same. Well, now, I mean, it's going to open up those evenings where there are two places I've been to in this city that are in my top 10, which this place is littered with outstanding food and great places to hang out. But I never knew it. I had no idea. Because
we've got the Senior Bowl top 300 players. Maybe we'll end up with your top 10 eating places that we can have for scouts, coaches, and personnel that we can get up on the website at some point as well.
We are going to do that, and we're also going to do it through Visit Mobile. We already talked to Visit Mobile about that. Within walking distance with, what I'm saying, because there's some people that are staying out in West Mobile because it's closer to the, close to the stadium, but it's not close to the interviews. Well, there's all the ones that are downtown. So, I mean, we're going to have a comprehensive list of places that you can go and possibly discounts. I mean, are built in, possibly 2-for-1s. I mean, whatever. I mean, because, it needs to be open. It needs to be rolling like it should be, and it used to be. But again, everybody was locked up from 7 o'clock to 10:30 every night. And I don't know about you, but I'm old now, but it's like, by the time I got done, I didn't want to do anything. Nothing. I was toast. I was like, okay, I'm good. I'll just wake up next morning, move on, get the workout in, go to practice, all that thing. But there was also that dead period in that morning, because you were going out to practice till almost 11:30, right? So I was going, why can't we just flip it?
Yeah.
So it was kind of natural. And, again, we're also having it to where it's not 10 minutes per team like it was last year. It's going to be 20 minutes per team. So 20 minutes per player. Okay. So, because again, I mean, you guys know this. I mean, when you're interviewing somebody, in 10 minutes, you're really not getting it. Especially if you have to kind of fill in some of the biographical information, hey, tell me about your parents, you're going to, say, then it's like by the time you get to it, then there's a horn.
Yep.
Well, so like I said, we're kind of changing things like that too. There's, not kind of, we are. So you get the opportunity to talk to every single player, right? You have an opportunity to, and like 20 minutes per. So I think that's a plus.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great challenge, great opportunity for NFL college directors, GMs, personnel people to, hey, now they get to reevaluate it too. Because again, it used to be, maybe it was 2 or 3, maybe 4 scouts. You're sitting there for 10 minutes, pick your 4 depending on the position, the cross check, whatever it is that night. But now you're going to have to coordinate a little bit because, again, it may be a coach that wants to talk to a kid or a director or, again, an area scout that knows them really well. So, again, there's going to be a really fun piece for some of these directors across the NFL to think about, hey, how are you going to make full use of that 20 minutes of time? Because, again, that time is so valuable. Again, I remember specific guys where you walk away, even in short 10 minutes, like, man, that's a dude I want. Again, everything matches up. Or it's like you walk away, it's like, hey, we got a bunch more questions in about a month that we got to ask this guy. And again, so to make sure personnel departments have that all buttoned up with the changes you're bringing, with some of these new stuff, again, it's all going to be good, but that doesn't mean it may be a little bit of a challenge on the front end for some of these teams to make sure they're right.
No, I don't disagree. But at least they have an opportunity to make that decision. And like you said, it can go one way or the other. To be like, I want him, or, they got a lot more questions, or I will take him off for more. And so there's a lot to be said about that.
All right. So, Drew, as a Senior Bowl old timer with a gray beard, I've got to ask you a few questions about what we've lost over the years that may be returning. Number one, is the Seafood Jubilee coming back?
Not per se that piece. I mean, we're talking about seafood, but it may end up being barbecue, right?
I can eat barbecue. That's not a problem.
I'm just saying, it may be. And it's going to be, probably more so lunchish, It'll be that bubble, like between like 11 and like 1 o'clock maybe or something like that on one of the days. We're working on that right now. Now, again, we might do the Seafood Jubilee thing, but it will not be about. I don't want to do that. And again, they're too covered up, and this is going to be also the media is going to be invited to that too. I mean, so it'll be community invites, not everybody in the community, but certain people that are committee members or VIPs or, sponsors or that type of thing. So yes, we're trying to do. Go ahead.
I remember how the community used to embrace it, and it's, obviously that's changed. It's not a criticism; it's just the way things have gone. All right, weigh-ins. Still no weigh-ins, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. I was crossing my fingers, but that's okay. Second floor, still no access.
Still no access. Just because I think that's more team driven up there. There's going to be no agents, no media, none of that. I mean, that's what they're going to have: the meals, the training, the meeting rooms. I mean, we can't do that. I mean, again, we only had access to that small little area anyway. I mean, and really it was like grabbing players here and there to go into the elevator, right?
Oh, I mean, well, in the old days, the second floor was a beehive. That's kind of where that was the nerve center of Mobile there for that.
I'm not gonna say a beehive. I was gonna use a different term with that. Because
like me, it was
a free for all that I didn't think was convincing for the players. I just thought, again, I'm trying to make it about the play. I really am.
Okay. All right, and okay, well that's great. The only other issue that I have with the modern Senior Bowl is just how hard it is to get in and out of Hancock Whitney, and that's not anything that can change unless you can change the
traffic
physics and just ingress and egress. It just makes it's a little tight, but that's neither here nor there.
I had like I said, I had a problem like get in, I did out. I mean, what do you mean that? I'm always listening. You know that.
No. Lads, it just seemed like it was easier getting in and out of Ladd than it was Hancock Whitney. But time marches on. I'm not complaining. It's a great stadium.
Well, there's what I found out. There's another entrance on the other side.
Really?
Yes. Now you got to drive through campus a little bit, because you remember just coming down the airport, you make that right, and then it's kind of hard getting in because everybody's coming at the same time. Mm-hmm. Well, off of Old Shell, there's actually another entrance on the other side, right? Which actually brings you in to where you're on the bottom end of that old stadium where the facility is. Where the end goes up on the hill and the facility is below it. You come in on that side instead of coming in on the other side where you've always probably come in at, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, I didn't know that because the major told me to come in the other way when I did the presentation. He said you get to the office a heck of a lot faster that way. I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's a nice little campus drive as well, like you said.
It really is.
You get to see it again. It's a beautiful campus out there, and again, once you get on there, again, slightly different way to get on there. But again, you'll have everybody looking at their maps now and actually planning it out, and which is again good. But we'll get them split up a little bit and get in there. Drew, one of your big changes, and let's get to some of these top 300. Again, a decision you made. The top 300 just came out the end of last week. You went from 850 down to top 300 now. And obviously, I'd imagine some meetings were involved. Again, it wasn't just, cutting off players, from here. Talk about first the decision to go from 850 to 300, and then how that process kind of played itself out with your scouting staff to get to the 300 that you guys announced.
Well, it kind of went back again to my first jump into, the GM side when I was at Auckland. And we got the watch list, up there in my first year. And I told Jim, I said, look, I said, 6 of these guys have no chance of playing in your game. No. And he goes, I know. He says, but this is what we want to do. And this, we're going to treat this as a watch list. We're going to carry these guys all the way through. Well, that's why we cut out the watch list term, because we watched all these guys that are on this list, right? And the 300 is not per se that we're going to take 145 players from just this list. They can still play their way in to an invite. And am I going to add to the 300? No. Am I going to highlight players that I've seen that have increased their stock that could possibly get an invite? Yes, I am. Right? But I thought it was watered down, and I thought it was, hey, do we really need to list every single senior or, 3-year eligible, player on the list? I didn't think so. Again, because we're going to narrow it down to 145 anyway. So why not take it to 300 and make it more prestigious, make it an honor, to actually be on the top 300. And I got great feedback, from a number of schools that said, hey, we told the players, man, that this is an honor just to be on the top 300 because it's not my position. This is the top 300 guys that we have graded. And, again, that's what we have graded. So, again, did I also read from other people that said, hey, such and such isn't on the list? Yeah, you're right. And there was also a certain aspect to this where I had to make a decision on juniors. And if you were in a top 3 round junior, I wasn't going to put you on the list because I didn't want to piss head coaches off because I've been on that side too. And it's like, oh, well, hey, if I say, you got 7 other guys that, worthy, well, that may push them out the door when they want to actually keep them around. Well, but then here goes the other piece. I talked to one head coach. He goes, well, he said, didn't put such and such on. I said, well, I said, because he was hurt last year and I thought it'd piss you off. He goes, no, it would have pissed me off. And I said, but I didn't put the running back on. He says, I know. He said, I'm happy about that. So I was like, I can't win for losing. So, but I try to make it like just kind of a Mendoza line to where, are these gut cinch top 3 round guys? The juniors, most of them, yes. So I didn't want to bog it down with putting more juniors into it. Because again, can they declare and can they get an invite? Heck yeah, sure they can. But again, you had to have some kind of structure with this, and I wanted to make it more prestigious because again, the game's prestigious. Like I said, I want to take this to 80% draftable guys every single year. If I'm at 80%, I'm happy. I really am.
Mm-hmm. Did you, again, we've got our guys up there. We've got our grades up there. This is our line. Let's get 300 above it. Was it, hey, look, we've got these 100 players we've got to have conversations on with the scouts. Did you allow scouts a voice like, no, this guy belongs in this top 300? Again, especially with some of those, again, I think 53 underclass players included in this group where, again, that goes back to, again, have a little bit of conviction in scouting. It's like, no, if this guy has the year we expect him to, he's coming out. How were those conversations? Did you get everybody together? Were those Zooms? Did you have those conversations?
Well, no, we didn't put the 10 that we have on the road because they hadn't graded any of these guys yet. Now, this is kudos to the staff here. Before I walked in the door, I looked up on the board, there's 250 players already on the board. That's when I walked in here, like put in the apron, just to enter. And I said, wow. I said, they're dead. Now there's close to 600 players on the board, but we've got those demarcation lines of where we have them. And it's no different than a draft board. It's a vertical draft board. That's all it is, by position. So, yeah, they had, heck yes, I was going to listen to because Jack Gilmore, Michael Newsom, Jack Ruby, these guys have already graded a lot of players. And then it was time for me to start catching up because, there's certain guys that, I lined up against or did 2 deeps when I was a GM and all that. And I'm like, yeah, I know these guys. I know these guys. I know these guys. But there are a lot of them that I didn't know. So I had to rely on them to say, are they up that down? Now again, I'm starting to look at some of them and I'm going like, because I didn't see all the 300. And I'm not going to lie about that. I didn't see every single one of them. But I've seen probably about 225 to 230 now. So I'm working my way through it. And now it's time for me to start stacking these guys within those tiers. And, do I go, I like this guy better than I like this guy. And I'm watching them back to back now.
Yeah.
And then we'll do the same thing when we do the invites. We're going to start watching every single running back that's in the top 2 tiers, and we're going to put them in order of the preferences what we want, just like a vertical board. So, yeah, I'm going to listen to these guys, and, hopefully they're learning something from watching tape with me. Because the scouting assistants, every time they're like, hey, you watching anybody? I'm like, no, I got 6 calls. I'll let you know when I'm done. And I'll say, all right, ready to go. I'm being treated and trying to get on the offensive floor, or they're in the defensive floor. I'm watching all of them at the same time. Let's go. And I just verbalize what I see. And again, I'm not right all the time. I'm not. And I'm still learning at my age. But again, at least I know what I'm looking at when I have a huge backlog of guys that I've done. And, I'm always comparing guys, and I threw out some comparisons on X already, and they went through the roof. Like I said, Sutherland's reminded me of Donovan McNabb. The Banks kid at Florida reminded me of Charles Omenihu. I got tons of those. Am I going to give those out all the time? No, but I'm going to throw those out there every once in a while. Just because it makes a good reference point for me in my head too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, again, the numbers kind of represent again what we've seen first round of the NFL, really at the top of the draft. 161 offensive players on this list, 132 on the defensive side of the ball. We've got 7 specialists, so we're not forgetting the no long snappers, which again, got to give my long snappers some love out there. Again, there's going to be a couple there.
I'll have them here.
But again, 23 quarters. So we're on offense, 23 quarterbacks. That was a big number for me. Again, as I start looking through that list, 23 quarterbacks. Again, you're looking to take 6 to 8. Do you have a set number of quarterbacks?
I'm thinking probably. I'm thinking 8. And again, could that go down to 7? Maybe. Could it go down to 6? Maybe. It kind of depends on the other positions, and are they really interested?
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, there's a few that I already know that I want this year. And again, that's just because I've graded them that way.
Yeah.
So, again, you got to look at not just the quarterbacks, but again, remember it's the highest graded. So the positions aren't going to be balanced. They're not. Now, later on, they'll be balanced. I mean, like, we're going to take 15 corners. We're going to take 11 safeties. We're going to take 10 linebackers. I mean, I already know those numbers, but I didn't break it down that way.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's the again when you start talking your top 300, you're not going to have a hard time hitting those quotas on them, and again, so it makes that real nice pool. Again, you've got your 23 linemen, 23 quarterbacks, 53 linemen. Again, your 19 tight ends. Again, you start talking and splitting it out. 45 wide receivers, 21 running backs. Again, gets you to 161 on offense, which is really good. And then again, really keeping it 3 big buckets on defense. 47 DBs, which obviously you'll split up corners, safeties. As it always goes, you get down to Mobile, you're gonna get some safeties playing nickel. You're gonna get some nickel guys and outside. Hey, we want to see them over at safety. You start mixing and matching those DBs a little bit. Have a little bit of fun. Linebacker, same thing. Inside, maybe get those edge insides and those D linemen 3 tech out to edges. So again, on defense, you keep it nice 3 big buckets. 63 D linemen. Again, the premier position. 63 on the D line, 53 on the O line. It's a trenches game. That's where we always see, again, you talk about the quarterbacks, you want to see the stuff with the quarterbacks, but that O-line, D-line position is oftentimes, let's get him in a unique spot. Let's get him where NFL teams view him only. Maybe it's full-time 3 tech. Maybe it's full-time 5 rushing in these ways. Hey, tackle to guard to center, wherever it's at. It's a trenches game. Is that a strength again? Getting over a third of your players in just those 2 positions again. Strength of the Senior Bowl again.
I don't know if it's going to be as strong D line wise, okay, but I think it's going to be better as an edge rusher wise. I'm just looking at it now. I think the quarterback class is really good. I think the running back class is good. I think the wide receiver class is good, but it's heavy into number 2s, not number 1s.
Yeah.
Okay. Tight end, receiving tight end is good, but there's actually 4 or 5 real wide tight ends. So that excites me because there are not many of those.
No, they're not.
And like I said, I think the offensive line, I think it's solid. I think it's probably a touch better than last year. And across the board, what I'm saying is across the board now, maybe some better premier players at tackle or at guard. But I think overall, I think it's good. I don't think the D-line is as good. I think the edge rushers are better. I think the linebackers are a little lean. But I think that's a trend that's been like about 7 or 8 years maybe.
Yeah.
That dudes don't want to play linebacker anymore. And, I mean, they truly want to play a position where they're going to touch the ball. Safeties is a little bit low, okay? But I think that's kind of the trend of the linebackers in a way. I really do. Now, there's some premier safeties. I mean, premier safeties. And the corners are solid. I mean, probably about 15, 16 deep, that are really, really good players. So, and then going back to that quarterback class, I think there are 8 eventual starters on that list. Now, I'm not saying that 8 are going to start next year.
Right.
I'm just saying that I think there's eventually they may end up being a guy that starts, for an NFL team. I'm not saying, he's a franchise guy. I'm saying he's a starting quality quarterback. So 8 out of that, out of the 23, I think this shows you it's a pretty good class. And that's just my opinion, but I think it's a really solid class.
Yeah, and we're not even going to get into it. That's excluding a certain quarterback down in Austin that everybody has wildly varying opinions on this year. So we won't even get into that young man.
Excluded him.
Yeah, exactly. He's not on that list.
No.
But again, there's people ready to put him QB1. So that is going to be, again, everything else aside that we talked about today, that's going to be a really fascinating conversation. One of the interesting is I started breaking down this list. Again, you put the numbers out. LSU 14 players. That was the number one list. Again, SEC dominated, which made sense. Again, you've got LSU with 14, Bama with 13. Again, kind of shows their expectations. Ole Miss with 10. Again, for everything else, Lane knows how to bring in NFL talent and players that can play. Oklahoma, Penn State with both 10. You've also got 19 group of 5 players. You've got 5 FCS players. Again, heavy Power 4, Power 5 conference. Again, everything that kind of matches the trends. First, start with, again, those teams with high expectations. Again, Brian Kelly, this could be a year for him. Brought in, again, maybe one of my favorite players I've watched so far is his transfer guard from Northwestern. He's brought in some good pieces. He's got a loaded offensive line. He's got the quarterback, the wide receiver room's loaded again. Talk about some of these schools that have a bunch of players. And again, you've got to be excited right there in your backyard with LSU. Probably going to be heading over to a few of their games to check some of these guys out.
Already been practice already. Well, and this kind of goes back to, what is the expectation for this? Well, put it this way. If you have probably in the neighborhood of 10 to 14 or 10 to 15, draftable players, you should probably be competing for a playoff spot.
Yep.
And I go back to this, and I'm not downgrading the Big 12 at all. I'm just saying because I was in the Big 12, when I broke down other teams, because I broke down 2D for offensive defense, to actually pinpoint their weaknesses and to find a bunch of players to find mismatches, right? Well, you go through the Big 12, and there's normally about 6 to 7 real dudes on a roster, right? And you go, okay, that guy's playing good, that guy's playing good, that guy's playing good. And then you turn on Penn State, which I broke down for 2 straight years, and they've had 14 guys in first year. And I went, eventually 14 of these guys are going to play in the NFL. Well, they got 10 guys on the list this year. I've already broken that. Yeah. And already knew those guys. So it's like, should they compete? Absolutely. Because he's done a really good job of recruiting, plus he's done a really good job of retaining his players at Penn State. Now, again, I'll bet you that Ohio State had 10 or more last year. And I didn't even check. But I'll be willing to bet you they did. And, win a national championship, right? So that is a pretty good indicator that you have a chance to compete for a playoff spot.
Yeah, and when not only do you have that number of players for, again, some of these schools, you've got the quarterback on there too, which again, it's quarterback driven. NFL, again, your quarterback's going to dictate a lot in the college. Some really, really fun players. Again, Oklahoma, obviously Penn State and LSU have guys with big expectations, big NFL talent, had decisions to make last year, as well as some of these, guys that maybe have more unknowns. Again, Ole Miss and Alabama, new quarterback stepping in to kind of do their things. And again, there's going to be some really fun ones. What's the, if there's something when you start talking about this top 300, what gets you really excited about, man, it's just going to be, it is going to be our best year of talent down in Mobile that with this top 300 and beyond?
I think that, well, I'm going to backtrack a little bit, just because I think that this has changed a little bit because the quote sweepers and the quote diamonds in the rough, they're not there yet because the GMs that have NFL experience like I did, they're coaching those guys from Division II and from on that FCS, right?
1,000%.
And that's why the number is down. If you look at it, just 24 players, right? At those levels, 24. I'll bet you pre-NIL, I bet you that was close to 50 that couldn't have a chance of playing in the Senior Bowl. And again, there's no secrets anymore at all. And you're gonna get, if you're a Division II guy and you got measurables and you got statistics and you got performance, you're not spamming, man. So I think that that's made this job a little bit easier. Right now, to answer the question, I'm really excited about seeing the quarterbacks in the offensive end. I really am. And I think the edge rushers are going to be probably the most attractive position this year. I'm really big. I think there's one player that sticks out like a sore thumb, and I would compare one of them to a perennial on the club, and I think he's that good. And again, I let I talked to another show, and I did one of the highest graded guys. Well, then when I went back down, and I go, no, he really wasn't the highest graded guy. This guy was, and so I'm really excited to try to get the highest rated guys that I think are going to be perennial all pro type of guys that have all the traits and all the percentages. It excites me to try to get them good, because in college, I'm a hell of a recruiter, I think I can solve this problem pretty easily. People just have to listen to the right things.
Yeah.
Drew, as we move into the fall, and obviously it's still very early, season hasn't started yet. Can you give us some idea of how you're going to do your invites and kind of when they're going to go out and what those, if they're going to be different? I mean, it's a different thing with the Senior Bowl because typically if you're going to invite a kid, he's going to accept it. Now he may change his mind in January or something like that, but when I've worked on All-Star games, we send out a lot of invites. We hope that half the guys accept them, but it's different with the Senior Bowl. How do you plan on kind of sending those out? What's your timetable? How much can you tell us about that?
It'll be about that, and it'll give us some leeway, in case guys decide that they are not going to participate, and we can send out the backups, the backup group of those after that. Panini's going to be involved with that. Little teaser, okay? And again, it's an honor, and I want it to be treated like an honor, and there'll be certain ones that I will go to do personal invites. And most of the time that has been in a smaller school, and I kind of like that idea. I like that they did with that, and I think I'm probably going to run with that. Am I going to go over and do, 8 or whatever, or 6 or whatever with LSU? I might, but I think it's that one guy from that group of 44 players, or some of the surfaces later on, where I make sure I'll do the invite punch on. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're looking at, and it'll be pretty much middle November, right around that.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up again, Drew, we've said it kind of at the beginning, not a traditionally big social media guy. Do you have your own X on Instagram? Are you posting anything? Obviously, at Senior Bowl is the spot. And again, with that Panini, it always throws me now with that Panini logo. I pull it up and I'm like, wait, what is? Oh, that's right. The Panini Senior Bowl, which is what we're seeing now. Senior Bowl for all the updates. Is there anywhere else people can go to make sure they're following you, following Senior Bowl, anything?
I do. I have GFAVE SB. That's my name. Is that correct? Okay. And did you see the logo? Have you seen it?
I've got it pulled up right now. It's sitting in my window right here.
There you go.
There it is.
That's what it is, man.
Panini, again, for the card fans, for the NFT fans, again, that Panini logo really sticks out. Again, that is, the card element of all these guys getting in their rookie and everything. But that's the first thing that comes to my mind is like, yeah, this guy's premier, right?
Oh, and I love the partnership. And they've been the practice sponsor, I guess, for like 2 years. And they blew up last year on that Let's Day Panini night, and they would put the cards out right there. It took them like 10 minutes to do the cards. It was fabulous. The kids went nuts. And don't get me wrong, Reese's was a great partner, but I love having Panini involved because it's sports related and it's football related. And they're going to have probably, I'd be willing to guess, 10 or 11 players, but then they already have under contract that are going to be in the stadium.
Yeah.
And they may actually sign 4 or 5 more up. Gambling, who knows? I mean, that's up to them. But I love having them. They've been great partners. I couldn't, like I said, when he said they want to be the clubhouse sponsor, I was like, I'm all right. Do it. Let's roll. Because we're going to do some really, really creative things with them that will not just expose them, but it will also help the players brand themselves. So that's another little piece. Like I said, there's a little teaser. Like I said, the invite's going to be information Canadian related type things. Okay? And it may not be what you think.
Well, that's going to be fun. I'm excited for that. Excited to see where it all goes. Again, some really fun, again, both old school, again, getting back to what the Senior Bowl had been, again, all your years of experience being there, and again, thinking about all these best and future topics, but all, again, like you said, with Panini, that's a whole different realm. And again, the younger generation loves that. If it's the NFT portion or whatever, it's going to be a lot of fun. I can probably speak for myself, for Scouts, for Neil. We will probably miss the little Reese's mascot walking around throwing out free candy. But again, probably better for all of us anyway that we don't have a little bit more chocolate and peanut butter. But again, I'm sure there's a spot to find it down the way. But Drew, this has been a lot of fun. Really, really excited for the Senior Bowl, where everything's going for again, your tenure there. And really appreciate you being on with us.
Yeah, I'm really thankful you guys had me too. And I enjoyed, like I said, I enjoyed speaking to you guys as much as on camera, but off camera too. And it's a good thing. So again, know that I'm not a media guy, but hey, what I can do is I can find players, and hopefully we can get the best ones down here. And I always tell people, let's get your tail in the field. It's it. Bottom line. And I love reading this little tagline. I found a brand look at that. Senior Bowl, where players come to play. They beaten that out, so we're using with that.
Absolutely.
We're looking forward to being in Mobile. It'll be a lot of fun, and looking forward to seeing kind of how this goes for you. Good luck to you, Drew, and thanks again for joining us, buddy.
Yeah, pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Agents, before we go, make sure you go check out Agent Live 360. It is at agentlive360.com for everything you need for your agency, from players to coaches, managing profiles, tracking invoices, sending invoices, getting paid, keeping up on every element of your entire agency. Notification emails, file folder storage, ROI, transactions, invoices, calendar, contracts, teams, reps, everything all in one spot for you. That is Agent Live 360. Hop on, request a demo. Yours truly will hop on, walk you through it. I can promise you we will talk some football as well. Sign up now with code TRIAL90 for a 90-day, 3-month trial at just $10 a month for Agent Live 360. That's at agentlive360.com. Go check it out now.